Okay. All right. Moving council, have you got the resolution? Yes. So welcome everybody. We're already in open, so it's great to see everybody here that we need tonight because it's raining and it's flooding, and we've got the kinsmen that are going to talk to us later about their flood relief program. We have the insurance company here. We have our June flood report for the flood in June. We have the press. We're all good, and hopefully we don't get any more rain. So we don't want another one. But welcome everybody. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Anderson. The minutes of the January 23rd, 2018 council meeting be approved. All in favor? Great. Okay. Minor variance.
This is not mirroring.
Not working? Oh. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Turton. The Town of Minto Council convenes in the Committee of Adjustment. All in favor? Very good. And now, this is for the minor variance one, right? So I will conduct this public meeting, discuss the following. A minor variance and application MV. Oh, sorry. Are you all right?
We're good.
Oh, good. Okay. Minor variance application MV 201801 as 9551 Road 3 North, Town of Minto, Carl Baumann. Carl, I think, is here tonight. We don't need you yet. Thanks for coming. I will call the public hearing to order and publicly state any decision reached by this committee today cannot be used to set a precedent. Each application considered by the committee is dealt with on its own merits, and no two applications are exactly the same. The public hearing is to consider a minor variance file number MV 201801 Baumann. I will call on the Secretary Treasurer to state the following information.
Thank you, Chair Bridge. The subject property is legally described as Concession 13, North Part Lot 15, municipally known as 9551 Road 3 North in the Town of Minto. The purpose and effect of the application is to permit construction of a home industry addition with a total floor area of 420 square meters or 4,528 square feet on the subject lands, whereas Clause 6.14D of the zoning bylaw permits a maximum home industry with a floor area of 232 square meters or 2,500 square feet. Notice was mailed to property owners within 60 meters or 200 feet of the property and applicable agencies and posted on the lands February 2nd. Reports were received from the Town of Minto building assistant with no concerns. The junior planner, Jessica Wilton, from the County of Wellington, with no concerns, and also the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority had a fairly lengthy letter, but they also had no concerns.
Anybody want me to go over any of those reports? All good? I will call on the application if you wanted to speak. Do you want to speak to it, Carl, right now? There's okay. And I don't see anybody out there that's going to rebut it. So, and you guys have asked all your questions. So, Secretary Treasurer provides a resolution for the committee to consider.
Thank you, Chair Bridge. I have two recommendations. One is to approve and one is to deny. So I'm assuming based on the conversation that it would be to approve. So if you like, I could read the decision. That Council or Committee of Adjustment approves the application by Carl Baumann for the property as described to permit the construction of a home industry addition as described, and that the reasons are the committee believes the request to be minor and desirable for the appropriate development of the lands and to maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The comments considered, County of Wellington, Town of Minto staff, and Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority.
You want to pass that around then?
We had a mover and a seconder, and we'll pass it around for
second by Jean. All in favor? I'm doing the ends.
Please only sign if you're supportive of the position. Just read.
Want me to read 9 when we're doing that? Okay, I will state anyone wishing to receive a copy of the notice of decision to please sign the request of notice decision prior to leaving the council chamber following the meeting. I'll now adjourn that public meeting. Carl, you're all good. And did you want to say what, like,
Yeah, tell us all about it.
tell you what what you're building there? Is it furniture or custom furniture? Excellent.
Doing right now, I guess, my son wants to farm where we are, so we bought another property and like keep on building furniture with it.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, you're in business.
Thank you, Member Rich. Carl, so are you anticipating having anybody else work for you other than your son and yourself?
Just my son. I worked alone before my son was out of school, and now my one son takes an interest in working, so he's helping.
Oh, good.
Thanks.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Caldwell, second by Councillor Dirksen, that the Committee of Adjustment convenes to the Committee of the Whole. All in favor? Okay. Delegations. No public meeting, right? Delegations, and we have first up is the Harrison Kinsman Flood Fund. Who's speaking on behalf? Okay, good stuff. First of all, it's just great that you guys stepped up to the plate in June and took this on, because the way it works, we have to have somebody, but you can maybe explain that.
Well, thank you. I made a bit of a slideshow, as you can see there.
Yeah, that was good.
So as we know, we had a flood June 23rd of last year. We created this fund to people in need that maybe didn't have insurance or didn't have as much insurance coverage as they thought they did, or their damages exceeded what they were covered for. We had a lot of different organizations contribute in ways of fundraising or donations, or yeah, and it was great to see the community come together for this. This here is a check presentation by Drew Barbecue Team, like as they called themselves.
Yep.
They were our biggest donor, and I'd like to give a big shout out to them because they were a very small group, and they donated $2,500 towards the cause, and yeah, they were our first donor and our biggest donor and got us off to a flying start. So big thanks to them. This is another check presentation. Our club vice president Todd accepted the check from the Palmerston Lions Club. That was for $1,000. That was another big donation. This is a neat story.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Sam Faulkner, a local kid, had a lemonade stand bake sale and donated the proceeds to it towards our cause. It was $146, and
Nice.
there was several kinsmen went and tested out the lemonade, and it was delicious. And this is a list of the donors that I have records of. I don't have records of all the donors. If you donated directly at the bank, they didn't keep track of that. So there will be some missing names on there, but this is what I had records of. So I think there's almost 20 names on there. So and from Palmerston, Harrison, Drew, I think we had individuals as far as Owen Sound donating. So
Even Ed North Star there from Toronto.
From Toronto, yeah. CKNX Radio donated ads when we had the Jimmy Keys event. So that was great to get the word out about what we were doing. This is a member of the club, and the Legion president in town here. He shaved his mustache off to raise money. We raised just a little over $500. And he'd had that mustache since he was, I think he said 16 years old, and his wife and kids had never seen him without it.
I've never seen it without one.
No.
Yeah, so there's the after picture there. Yeah, $510, I believe, is what we raised with him doing that. So overall, we raised a little over $12,100. Our committee consisted of local kinsmen from another community, and people from our community that aren't involved in kinsmen too. That was to try to keep it as fair and impartial as possible. Every applicant that received money, so they all had, most of them were all very thorough applications too. Like, they sent us a ton of information, so that was good. And all but about $40 went to the applicants. We just had bank fees, unfortunately.
Any questions for comments?
I'd just like to make a comment. Congratulations, and the Kinsmen have always been very active in our town, and we really appreciate you doing this. And
Thank you.
that was a devastating day for a lot of people, and you really helped them out.
Well, we're here to help however we can.
And that's important. And you know, we get talking, and when the press came from the city and everything, and they talked about, I remember standing there and saying, well, you got people that had evacuated their homes. Where have you got them stored, or where are they staying and whatnot? And I said, well, probably at people's houses. You know, that's just the difference. And, you know, and then the Kinsmen coming up, and as you say, we were looking, people wanted to donate. You guys came up with the ability to do this because we couldn't necessarily take it in on the town. So I give you a lot of credit to do that. And it looks like you had some fun doing it too. Like, in the end of the day, some of the things were great to see, some of the groups and a lot of the activities that people donated from their activities as well. So I thought it's real good team building for the town and morale. So at a time when people needed that morale, that good kick. So appreciate that. And it's not easy to give money out and not get yelled at by everybody that I give it out to who did that, whatever. So kudos that you put a committee together that did that, and hopefully you're not getting anything but positive feedback. You certainly deserve that.
All right.
Thanks
you very much.
Now, you guys don't have to stick around, anybody that wants, but we have Janet. But Janet normally she's just, she's pretty interesting when she gets up to talk. But it's all about the mayor's 8th annual golf tournament. So, but otherwise you don't have to stick around. You can go and enjoy your rest of the night. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, enjoy that. Bye, Carl. Take care.
Bye, Carl.
You guys.
Doesn't look like Janet.
Janet and Gord, sorry. Gord and Janet. Thanks, Bill, for that.
It's not Tanya.
No, it's not Tanya.
No, volunteered.
Yeah.
Volunteered.
Yeah, that's right. Last minute substitution. Here we are. Anyway, so as the mayor mentioned, this tournament is now into its 8th year, and we picked a date, August 9th. Doesn't conflict with AMO, and it's before the Sweet Party and the Canada Packers Union, so kick off a very long weekend with that.
We are now accepting applications from nonprofit organizations that fit into one of the 3 categories: community betterment, service clubs, or sports clubs, to receive this year's proceeds from the tournament. Applications will be accepted until Monday, April the 9th, and will be available on our website or at the town office.
So over the past several years, the whole tournament seems to get larger and larger every year. And we've raised over $72,000, and it's gone right back into the community. We've assisted over 25 groups or organizations, whether with special projects or events or their regular operations. Last year we kind of had a youth focus. I think that kind of fit in with a lot of council initiatives too. And so we had 3 youth organizations benefiting from the proceeds. And in previous years, we've done downtown beautification, we bought new sports equipment, we've fundraised for a refugee family, helped Boy Scouts fundraise to a Canadian Jamboree, and I know there's a couple of other organizations that we've helped too. So it's been pretty diverse, and we've tried to hit all sections of the community.
Last year we had a full tournament, and we are hoping that this year's event will be another great success, and we look forward to supporting and assisting our local groups again this year.
Good. Questions? Comments? Just that we've got a great team, and it's always fun to get the three groups coming in, whoever they are. And I find that that's been the refreshing part of this, because there are three different groups each year, and they bring something to the table every year, and the enthusiasm. So it's not the same people doing it, but without Gord and Tanya and yourself and then the other troops that fill in. I know Belinda's done some work, and everybody else and participates in it. It's well run now, and we've got all the bugs out of it. Not quite, except for the weather. But anyways, I really appreciate all the efforts that you put in for it. When I started to do this 8 years ago almost, I never thought it would ever get to that kind of money. So it's been a real thrill to see all those groups helped out. Let's have another good one.
To the sponsors.
Yeah.
And you have two already in? You have two people already? Yeah. Excellent. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. And next up is our insurance, Steve and Andrea. And poor Andrea had to come up through the fog to get here. Now, I think it looks good for your ride home.
Yes.
I think it's good. It just all of a sudden broke, but I drove from Guelph today too, and I understood what it was like going down and what it was like coming back. So, not a lot of fun.
Mayor Bridge, there is a last-minute change on late Friday on the total bid amount for the insurance. It's listed in my report at $256,312, and you have for the better an updated bid. It's $253,841, so it's about $3,000 less, $2,500 less. That's a good correction. So appreciate Steve and Andrea getting that to us.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think we had a few different automobile schedules going back and forth, so this should be the correct number of automobiles at 46, which I believe was the most current amendment to
Perfect. Okay, I'll just turn it over to you guys, and you can go through it as whatever detail you want, and then if there's questions, we'll.
In terms of the proposal, all the coverage is outlined in here, as it is every year. Nothing has changed with the coverage or the limits. So we can skim through this part pretty quickly. Starting at page 4, this is the primary liability, which is the $5 million of underlying liability coverage. We're still in that 3-year long-term agreement with our insurer. That's until March 2019, so next year. And it depends on the market changes at the time. The municipalities that have LTAs that are expiring now, we're seeing the insurer just renew them for another 3 years because everything seems very stable right now. But we'll see what the market does next year. It also depends on the losses and the loss ratios if everything's favorable. The umbrella liability, you're still at the $20 million limit. So the total is $25 million, including the $5 million for the underlying policy. The next page is the property insurance. So last year we added the pedestrian bridges at $468,000, and the blanket property limit is just over $83 million. And there's some other extensions of coverage that are all included in the premium listed below. We're still at a $10,000 deductible for the property. Moving over to page 11, this is the crime policy. All limits and coverage are the same as last year. The automobile policy, we're at a $10,000 deductible. That hasn't changed. This is on page 12. All limits and coverage are the same as the expiring policy. We have council accident on page 13. $250,000 principal sum, 24-hour coverage. That's the best coverage that we have for that policy. Municipal volunteer accident coverage on page 14. We have seen a very popular uptaking of the, right now we have an age restrictions of 80 for volunteers, and a lot of municipalities have been removing that age restriction. It's an additional $250 a year if you have a lot of volunteers over the age of 80. You may want to consider that.
We're getting there.
Looking around the room.
Just how much you feel, or like your actual
Maybe
age?
it's the same volunteers, so they're all getting to that age now.
Yeah,
so
I know
they're
what you're
starting to
saying.
take that, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
That's true enough,
We'll have to
actually.
maybe have a look at that and see how many we do have over 80. Maybe a few.
For $250, we have some that are over 80 now.
I'm sure we do now.
So I don't know why we would chat about it too long.
Okay.
We know we have.
You want to add that?
Yes, please.
I think that's
Okay.
reasonable.
All right.
I agree.
I don't think we should spend long thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah. And I have the municipal options on page 16, so these are the same as they are every year. We have the automobile insurance. So a couple years ago, the government, province of Ontario, made changes to the accident benefits for the Ontario automobile policy and reduced the coverage. It was provincial wide. You would have seen it on all of your personal lines policies too. So we've outlined options to increase the accident benefits on the municipal policy. We really don't see a lot of claims in this section, so that may be somewhere where you don't want to consider buying up. We do have out-of-province medical offered for the councils that are enrolled in the council accident if you don't have travel insurance. We have critical illness and volunteer firefighters accident. I think you already have a policy through VFIS with that, so that would be the same insurer that we would have. I've also included a claims-focused bulletin for you on floods.
Wasn't that special?
There's a checklist and a flood plan in here. You may or may not find it useful. From what I hear from our adjusters and insurance company, you guys did a great job with your flood, and you did everything that you could have to mitigate that loss.
Yeah. Working away at it today.
So overall, in the premium wise, we saw an increase on the property, but the property underwriters are seeing this loss as more of a shock loss, so they didn't increase significantly. The loss ratio was 231%. Usually, the insurers start increasing 20% at 100% loss ratio. So they kept it at the 20%, knowing that this was a shock loss. It's not something that happens. You guys are really good at your risk management and keeping the losses and claims under control. Any questions?
Feeling a little bit nasty mentioning this, but I feel like people that we represent read the papers, especially maybe the Bisbal. And I noted in there that Wellington North's insurance for 2018 is about $75,000 less than ours. And I know some of the reasons why that could be, like deductibles can be different, some of the options can be different, and those kinds of things. What other? I guess I'm just looking for some more information on things that would make the amounts different without reading their policy, right? Besides those couple of things like deductibles and that kind of thing, what else makes the difference between insurance policies?
Well, the insurance rates only increase when there's claims made. So if there's no claims or the losses are below that 40% threshold, then the rates stay stable. That's basically how everything is underwritten. So if you look in the council minutes, you'll find the comparison. So you can do an apples to apples comparison for Wellington North and Minto. Okay. And that's public information.
That was on the sheet.
Is that?
Is that in this book?
No, you'll have to look in the council minutes.
I was going to say it's
since
okay.
you're comparing to another municipality.
Yeah.
Oh, in their
in
council.
Yeah.
Oh, in their.
Yeah.
Are you there, Gary?
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, you don't want to get into deductibles or limits, but it is public information, so you can do a very detailed comparison there.
Mm-hmm.
Very basically, if you have claims, the insurance premiums are going to be higher than if you don't. They are always stable if you don't. Especially with JLT, we have global resources, so our insurance rates are always very, very stable.
Mm-hmm.
it'd be interesting, Judy, to see what their overall equipment is. And
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Number of
There's just,
vehicles.
that's the
Yeah,
kind of
the
thing.
assets,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that's more
And
the
the
assets
value
and the
aspect
value and all
of
those
these
things.
vehicles.
Yeah, that's right.
we have 3 arenas. They have 2.
They've got 2. Yeah,
There's,
Yeah.
there's a few things. We have 3. You know,
We have 3 fire departments. They
we
have
have
2.
3 fire departments. We have 3 sewer systems.
That's right.
You know, it's gonna. And like, I know you have the same. They have the same carrier. You guys are their carrier as
Yep,
well.
yep.
So, but you could look into that. I mean, but I.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is I don't think that anyone is going to ask for a comparison, like on the street corner. They're not going to ask me for a comparison.
No.
But it's nice to have those answers handy, right, in your pocket when you are asked, right? Because somebody may look at that and say, hey, Wellington North is bigger than we are, more population, and yet they're $75,000 less than we are right now, right?
Yeah,
So-
and I don't have their premiums in front of me.
Yeah.
They're-
And I'm not
they're
expecting
liabilities.
a line by line comparison.
Yeah.
But things like number of vehicles, number of arenas, those kinds of things. Those are the
No,
I think those are the things that we need to have at the ready in case somebody does ask those questions, right?
That's right.
And that's why I said I feel nasty. I don't want to offend you, but that's the kind of thing that we sometimes would get asked. So thank you.
And I guess I have to look back in 2013, last time we went out for a tender on it, I believe our previous barrier bid was $255. Now with our $3,000 less, we're actually where we were in 2013.
Yep.
So I look at those situations. So I think what I was happy to hear is that our staff seem to be handling our losses, our claims, and making sure we have things in place. And because if not, like we all know, insurance, the more claims we have, the more insurance goes up.
Yeah.
So we're trying to keep our handle on it, and it sounds like that seems to be working. We're going to get that third-party liability thing fixed, and then our insurance will just drop like a stone.
Yeah, down to half.
After the next election, right?
Yeah.
Thought we had it last time. All 3 parties said they were going to do it, but then unfortunately we let one of them get the majority. That was the end of that.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. Andrea, so is JLT and another company the 2 major players in Canada? Or is there
You can say the
a
name.
good choice?
Yeah, well, JLT
Comes.
is the largest municipal broker in the world.
In the world.
Yes.
In the world.
Globally,
So-
yes.
You have a lot of the market covered then in
Yep. Yeah. I think JLT and Cowan are the 2 top in
Cowan.
Canada. Yeah. But JLT definitely global a lot. In Europe, we have 97% of the municipal business. In Australia, New Zealand, South America, very large municipal presence globally.
Thank you.
Can I just ask then, the increase in our insurance this year is primarily due to the flood?
Well, there was the flood and there were asset changes. So there was 4% inflation added to the assets on the property. So the blanket property limit increased by $3 million.
Okay.
But the rates for property also increased slightly because of the flood last year.
And the fire.
Yes.
Oh, the fire, yes, I forgot about the fire.
Alcohol liability. That's we have our own licensing in our community again. I didn't see it or avoided looking at it. I don't know.
Yeah. So
we got full coverage on.
Yeah. So if the municipality is in control of the event, then alcohol is covered. We do have an annual low risk policy that you have, and we have an option to add liquor liability and a vendor extension to that policy as well. So if you have small groups doing stag and does and you're requiring them to have insurance, you have the option of adding that to your municipal annual low risk, so they don't have to go out and buy a PAL policy or.
So right now, if the Lions Club rented it for an event, the Lions Club should have their own PAL insurance, you say?
They should have their own liquor liability, yes. Yeah.
So the town doesn't cover them?
Not if the town is not in control of the event.
Well, and I think that's the difference is the town runs their own bars. We don't allow any outside bars. So, but we do a stag and does and that offer that. And I don't know, Steve, what's been the uptake? I meant to ask Matt that. because through your policy, through our policies here, people can actually apply for additional insurance, liability insurance. And I think you have one. Bill, can you?
We've purchased that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So our groups don't have to get it.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
okay.
okay. That's what I wanted. We talked about this last year.
I know you had the annual lowers policy. I just wasn't clear if you had bought the liquor liability.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, we're running the alcohol. We're covered, but if you're an individual group, you could be named in something, but we've bought the protection for you.
Okay. Great.
That's what we've done. Okay, so I
It's
knew
very
we did
low
something.
cost.
I think you asked that question last year, and I think that's how we ended up.
Yeah. So that's good.
I knew we had it covered, but I didn't know how we had it covered.
Mayor Bridge, our report is presented there, and I think council's picked up on a lot of the points. And we did go through in a fair bit of detail the options, and we've never picked any of the options. But the most complicated part is the automobile side of things now. So I was glad to hear you say that there's lots of options there, but probably you say it like this, but we probably don't need to worry about adding to those benefits there. And just to say, we did have the fire loss for the bridge and then the flood loss. But other than that, we are basically confined to 2 or 3 slip and falls right now. So it was nice to hear also your comment about our risk management. I think we do our best, but as to the comparison to Wellington North, I'll be having a look at what I can.
Yeah, the list of assets is
different.
Yeah, so you can see they'll be the exact same, and you can see the assets listed.
Right. Okay.
So our property values of when we went out for quote, and that was 2013-14, our property values about 10 million more than back in 2013. So right there, there's a good bunch of the reasons for the increase. And as Mayor Bridge said, we're still at just now reaching where we were back in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Just these heavy rain events and flash thaws, they
can't do anything
put
about
the
those.
blood pressure up a little bit, but they also put your premiums up.
Yeah, the only thing I was concerned we've had.
Also put your blood pressure.
We've had the ice storms, we've had floods, a tornado. Are we covered for locusts? Because I'm a little worried about locusts. Like we have locusts because it seems like we're getting all the plagues.
Yeah,
but
birds, locusts.
Yeah, okay, we're good for locusts. Okay.
Mayor Bridge, just to finish off, we did not have flood insurance previously.
So
we do have that now.
Good.
So I don't know whether they regret that or not. But, so the deductible on that is $50,000. The main problem we had last year was primarily sewage backup. That's where a lot of the claims was. I appreciate working with Stephen and Andrea. We even, I think, covered our solar panels, if I'm not mistaken.
That's out for discussion yet. Because do you want that to be like if something happens to the solar panel, it goes on your loss ratio? Is it worth it? That's something that you guys can decide.
So we'll have to come back to council with that because they're on our buildings, and I think the premium is attractive. So the solar provider would be paying the cost of that premium. So, but it would affect our losses.
Yeah, would it be offset on
something happened to it?
Right. So I don't think we've really thought about that. So we'll have to bring that back to you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, is there a recommendation here, Bill?
Yeah, that it would be to
Right
approve the renewal with the revised amount and add the volunteer over 18.
Yes, I think we should do that for $250, right? Okay, all in favor?
Please.
Well, you make the motion, David. Okay, thank you. Judy, all in favor?
Yes.
Good. Excellent. Thank you very much.
I need acceptance of municipality insurance program proposal signed. So if you could sign it and send it to me.
Okay. Yeah,
we can do that
tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, have a good trip back.
I will.
Well, you don't have a Steve. I'm not worried about you. I think you'll make it. Over a couple of days. Yeah.
Speaking of road conditions, JLT is having a webinar tomorrow morning on the minimum maintenance standards, and everybody's welcome to log in. Doesn't cost.
Oh, did you hear that, Mike?
Well, Mike's aware of it, and if he's not chasing down floodwaters,
Yeah, we'll be on it. Yeah. Good Roads is coming up too, so.
Yes.
So you guys, you're not there though.
No, I'll be there for a lunch on the Wednesday. I think?
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Are you-
we're representing.
Yeah, we are. Yep.
See you there then.
Yep.
Excuse me?
Yes, you run. Oh, yeah, I thought you were leaving at 7:30.
Well, I was, but I thought I'd
All right.
keep these people company.
All righty, good. Where are you, Bill? Oh, right here. Public question period? No.
Yeah.
Correspondence received for information requiring direction.
I have a question.
Yep.
About, I gotta find it. The one that's asking AMO, they're telling us to
Oh, the
endorse
fire
their
med?
attachment,
Yeah.
but there is no attachment.
I think that comes up later, and I imagine Chris is going
Chris
to
is
speak
going
to
to talk
that.
about
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, but it's a good one. That's a good point, and we need to look at
Because-
that.
I'd like to look at it, but
Yeah.
well, I've had trouble getting my meetings. So I'm thinking, is it just my computer, or is it just me? Or
Is everything good on the Waterloo Wellington Lynn? Did you have a chance to read that for me, Jean?
I did read it. Yep, it looks they have some really excellent programs there.
Okay. You're my go-to person on that.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Through you, Mayor Bridge, I just wondered, John Nader's letter and the response from Ralph Goodall.
Yeah.
It's kind of a nothing response, but I just wondered, do we have any timing at all when the flood relief is supposed to be decided?
I did chat with someone.
Here, Gord, here.
I did chat with someone at Roma about the initial one. He sounded encouraging. I see nothing related. And I chatted with the individual and there was nothing. He was looking this morning. It was November 3rd. No indication of that.
And the letter doesn't say anything really, any indication as to timing.
No, it's pretty big. In the mail. It's in the mail. Motion to receive. Gonna have a motion to receive. Jean, Dave, all in favor? Great. All right. Saugeen, anything on there that we do that? David, Jean, all in favor? Okay.
Ultra roundtable.
Ultra roundtable. Linda. Award-winning Belinda.
Yes. Congratulations, Belinda.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Gordon and Mandy were quite sneaky, and the 37 people that wrote letters appreciate that very much. Thank you. So Culture Roundtable, I wasn't actually at this meeting, and it was a pretty short one because a lot of committee members weren't there. So basically the two highlights I'm pulling from this is that the SPARK, which is the Symposium for Performing Arts in Rural Ontario, we're looking at hosting a summit of some sort in October. So we're working with that group on planning that. And then the Cool Cones Public Art Project that we're working in conjunction with the Harrison Downtown Revite Committee in celebration of the Canada Packers reunion. We have 10 cones. All of them have been sponsored. At this point, I think we only have 3 or 4 people, artists, ready to decorate cones. So we've had to extend the deadline. It was Friday, and I think we're going to have to extend it again, but we're not going to be able to extend it much longer. So we're chasing local artists and artists further afield to submit, and there is a decent honorarium. It's about $350 and then $100 for paint supplies. So we'll see what happens, but hopefully we can get that going. So that's about it out of those minutes. Do you want me to keep going?
You want to approve these? We'll motion to approve. Jean, Judy, all in favor?
I just nod now.
Economic Development.
Yep, so the Economic Development Committee, we met right when we got back from EDCO. It was a busy day. And the highlights, there's lots of highlights from this meeting. Coming up, the county had Roger Brooks come up and do a presentation. He analyzed all the communities across the county, all the downtowns, and presented in Fergus. Some of our businesses were able to attend, but not everyone. So we're hosting an encore presentation. Whiteman's was there taping it. So on March 7th at the Norgan Theatre, if you want to come and watch a replay of that, you can hear what he had to say about it's more of an overview than community specific, and he will be providing us a 90-page report. So hopefully that report is more specific on improvements, and we're going to be taking that document in his presentation and drilling down to find out what our priorities are for the downtowns moving forward. We had a really good discussion at this meeting about what are our top economic development priorities. So Townfolio, for those that don't know what Townfolio is, it's basically a data source that takes data and makes it look nice, and it's always up to date on our website. We haven't had a good community profile for a long time, and luckily we just found out the county is going to take on this project. So we might have to throw in $2,000 to move forward with it, but we would have been paying $3,000 on our own anyway because we wanted to do it anyway. Youth spaces came out as a key priority. Increased promotion of community assets, and how we're looking at that is our top marketing campaigns this year will be our Move to Minto campaign, which we're hoping to do in conjunction with our developers in the community, residential. Our Come Home to Minto campaign and our Filipino Attraction Project are going to be our 3 promotion pieces this year. And our next meeting is focused around brainstorming ideas on how we're going to reach that. We're going to be working with Worth Communications on that strategy, or those strategies. And then obviously the Clifford construction project is going to be a big priority of ours this year. The Chamber Achievement Awards are going to be coming up, and we had the AGM meeting, and Mary Lou was unable to attend, so I get to present her with this little present from the Chamber, because Mary Lou has been in the Chamber since 2000, right? 17 years, and she's finally retiring. She tried to retire before, but they didn't let her. So, and she was the treasurer from 2005 till 2016 or 15, right? So on behalf of the Chamber, just a little token of
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And your current treasurer, I said, well, she has to get her replacement, right?
That's right. Yeah. She's only had 3 years. She's got a long time to go.
3 years, yeah.
The Launch of Minto stuff, there's all kinds that you can read in there. There's a lot of training and programming going on, and we're really excited to have Harold back, our business advisor. Obviously, he's not with the Guelph Business Center anymore, but we've contracted him personally, and really happy to have him back, and he's happy to be back. He's a great resource for our businesses. We are Clifford construction update, Bill, update on that. We're going to be getting into that, but we are planning a public meeting, probably early-ish April. Going to be a formal public meeting with a presentation open to all residents and businesses and anyone else who wants to come. We're pretty much set on our marketing strategy and promotions communications plan, which will look very similar to the Dig-A-Knit stuff. And yeah, I think the only other thing I'd want to point out is the facade improvement grant. So Sean Wells bought the William Street property, and he is gutting the whole building, going to have some commercial units on the main floor, upstairs some apartments. So you'll see eventually a structural grant for that, but this is for the facade. So he's going to be doing a nice stucco facade, which will blend nicely in that area. So that's for $3,000. It's about, I think, a $16,000 project. So good ROI for us. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Airbridge. Yep. Forgot the fire chief. Never mind. Okay.
Oh, okay. We were trying to get on earlier, were you?
Yeah.
Bill didn't let you. Didn't do that.
Canceled it. Good.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Righty. Next up, Parks and Rec. Oh, great. How are you doing tonight?
How are you?
Good.
For your financial.
Oh, sorry. We have motion to accept the economic development. Good. Keep us on the go.
How'd girl?
David and Mary Lou, all in favor? Sorry, guys. Well, I know. Well, I just did 2 for you. I'm trying to even it out. Okay, go ahead.
So the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee met on June 30th. Just going to go over a couple little highlights
January
here.
30th.
January 30th.
I'd love to be June, but
it could be June.
Get rid of this weather.
A couple things just to highlight. From the programming part of it, Service Manager Lubers has going to start the tribe program again this year, as well as they submitted an RFP for an after-school program through the Upper Grand. And the town will be switching to Life Saving Society for swimming lessons. So that'll be a little switch that the lifeguards and that will have to deal with registration and stuff like that. Facilities manager Alan Carr reported that the Palmerston Arena Olympia needed some repairs, so we received a loaner, Olympia, which we'll have for the rest of the year. That was kind of the agreement when we decided to go with them for the new one that we'll be receiving hopefully in March. And then the last thing would be the community meetings. We've scheduled some community meetings here at the town office on Monday, March 5th, and they're regarding the future projects and green spaces in Harrison, to do with the trailer park area and the area around the Harrison Arena. But we're going to be talking as well as the other green spaces within town. We're just sending out this week some invitations to community groups, some individual invitations to the groups so they know about them, as well as an ad will be in the paper for the next 2 weeks, inviting all the public to attend.
It'd be nice if some of the council. Unfortunately, I'll be in
you
Quebec.
guys will be receiving
I'll be in Quebec, so it'd be nice, hopefully.
So hopefully somebody's
yeah. I did get some of the drawings and maybe did all council get those?
No.
Might be worthwhile to have them.
Yeah, we can forward those on.
They're just some conceptual things.
I'm just noticing this meeting is to be held here. Do you think this facility is big enough?
Yeah.
I think for the group that we're anticipating, we were planning on using a couple other facilities. A couple of them already booked, and that's kind of the night that we're doing it in conjunction with the PRAC meeting. That way, the PRAC members can be at the meeting as well.
Yeah.
I think we have a list of 8 to 10 groups, so we don't expect the whole group to be there. Even a representative or two, so that the amount of people would be manageable here.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if it's in the paper, like I would hope we would. I would hope we would have too many.
I would, yes. And one of the reasons why we had it here is because of the AV equipment, and we have a slideshow and the drawings and stuff. We want to make a good presentation for the community. This is kind of the initial planning, and if we find that we need more meetings, then we'll go from there.
Excellent.
And I felt good today. I walked in and they were doing their life-saving interviews and parking for the school program or our recreation program.
Yeah, we started interviews for the summer.
Yeah, and so it's nice to see all these young people coming in, and I'm thinking, God, that's close to spring then. I see that happening.
Yeah, that's right.
Like almost seeing the first robin.
Yeah.
Yep. Good. Thanks. Any questions for you guys? No. Neat. Motion. Mary Lou. Jean. Oh, Judy. Sorry, Judy. Has her hand up. All in favor? Okay. I thought you had a question. Next
Mayor
up.
Bridge, you get me in the monthly building stats.
Yeah, we sent our building person home because she looked bad when this afternoon.
The chief building official is teaching new building officials, and this week, and our building assistant was exercising risk management.
Yeah. Well, when we told her at 4:30, I just got back from golf and you couldn't see, and I thought send her home before send her
Send her
late.
out on the road and you couldn't see.
Well, it was still daytime rather than at night.
That's okay then.
Yeah, thanks.
It'd be a lot worse driving at night.
Yeah.
So I have the presentation on. I'm not linked in, so Ben could follow along. I did put the camera on for our viewers at home. Doing the January permit stats review. This year we had $0.92 million in constructed value and 6 permits. That compares to last year's 0 permits, 0 construction value, yet it was a record year. So all of our huge stats were actually in 11 months, not 12.
Exactly.
January highlights, we identified our 3 agricultural permits, including a dairy, heifer barn, and a major commercial renovation. So the first picture is a concrete wall being poured for the fertilizer building at the co-op.
Yeah.
Middle picture is, and this is only exciting to chief building officials, maybe fire chiefs.
What is it?
Is a fire damper and fire blocking at the county social housing project. So there's actually a fusible link there, and if there were a fire, it would burn the link and that door would slam shut.
There. You know that, David?
Yes.
Yeah, that's in your
pretty
bailiwick there.
And then the last one is an extremely efficient house being constructed on Wellington Road 109.
Yes, it is.
So he wanted to highlight those pictures for you. And 10-year permit numbers are shown. So in orange, you can see our 2018 permit. And that picture is insulated footings for a home on Ann Street. So got the insulation down to prevent them from freezing. 10-year construction value, $921,000. The 10-year average is $210,000, so we're well above that average. And that beautiful picture is a nature stone site that somebody's fireplace built with stone off the property, native stone.
Nice.
I believe that is the house on.
Same house.
Is that the 109 house?
Yeah.
And where is this house?
Across from Cargill.
Yeah, the one
there.
the one that we had all the trouble getting the severance for the.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they had the little barn there, but it was that little piece. I drove by that today to make sure it wasn't underwater. It was all right.
So if there's any questions, I could try and answer them.
Beautiful.
Need a motion to receive if you're happy with the presentation.
Oh, Jean? All in favor?
Name tags.
Two
On the
J's.
side of our head.
You're up next again?
I am up next. Just need to put the camera back on you. And
This is exciting.
Bright Haven Homes is developing the Creekbank Meadows subdivision in Palmerston. And if you look really closely on that drawing, I have actually prematurely named the streets, but we'll deal with that later. The yellow spot is one where they would like to put a model home up. And in fact, I believe they may have reached agreement to allow him to get started. But
there's a foundation there.
Yeah. So you may recall we had a model home agreement with Clare Ridge Estates and Dan Sinclair, and he's building a model home on that property, and they'd like to do the same at this location. And the idea is that they're not connected to services for the time being, but they are allowed to get started. And then now they are constructing services on both those developments. And then winter came and they'll be back at it. But we have a signed subdivision agreement on this project. We have securities in place, and we're recommending that you would sign a model home agreement subject to the same terms and conditions as Creekbank, as Clare Ridge Estates. That's $5,000 a unit that we would, unless we had, in case we had to remove that home. That's our recommendation.
You want to move it?
Sure.
You move it. And Dave? All in favor?
Just getting updates on the flood situation out there
How's
on the
it
bridge.
looking?
So
That's
All right.
we're winning. We're at more than losing, I think. Maybe Mike will tell us more different when he gets.
Yeah, I was down there, Mike. Have you got it headset on there? Okay. It looked like it was starting to get
That water's going down a bit. Yeah. We're on to joint health and safety. Did you move that other one?
Yep, we did. Oh, that's great.
So I'm just here to make a presentation on our annual update. So I've been co-chair for a number of years with Matt Lubers. He stepped down this past year, and Todd Cowan has taken over his responsibilities. So the committee meets 6 times a year, and we have representatives from all different areas within the town. And one of our main focuses is the inspections that we do, both spring and fall. So we did one last April and late October. We find that time of year is kind of opening and closing of parks, and it seems to work out best for all the departments. So since I've joined the Health and Safety Committee, the inspections have become easier and easier. The deficiencies have been very, very minor. You might, if we break it up into Palmerston, Harrison, and the townships, so you might have 1 or 2 minor things, like a fire extinguisher not checked or an exit light out or something like that. So that proves that the departments are doing their own, health and safety and keeping track of things and keeping the employees safe. So,
any questions? Hoover, Judy, and Jean, all in favor? Okay. Yeah, you're next. You're next.
Get ready over there.
You next.
It's me. Steve's back. I'm back.
Yeah, you're a busy day. Trail funding.
Trail fund. So this is a report done by Matt Lubers. The trail funding that the county has that we've been involved in for the last number of years. We've used up the final money for 2017. We had until this year to use it up, but we've used it up. So we're asking for a recommendation that the council receives the report, and we send a report for funding to the county.
Great. Lou and Dave? Yep. All in favor? Just to comment on that too, and I was talking to the county. Hopefully there's some money left over that other towns didn't take that funding, and we're hoping that they may extend the program somewhat going into. They're having discussions around it anyways, and my recommendation would be to, if the money was set aside for trails and other municipalities didn't take advantage of it, I don't like it to go back. I'd like it to stay and maybe share it with everybody, the people that are taking advantage of it. So I'm hoping, I told Ron that I'm hoping that we can, some of that money, or they may even open up another one, and because it was fairly successful in some places. So certainly Minto took a lot of advantage about it, and I know some other communities, Center Wellington, I think, used up all theirs, and Erin. So there was some that used it and some didn't. As you know, it was a 2-for-1. You had to put $1 in for every $1 you got. So I like that. So hopefully we can get some more for you.
I know the Trails Committee that's in place is really keen and has some really good ideas. So any more funding would definitely help.
Thanks. Good luck. And the fire chief up next, and I could sit over here and be your boss.
No, my chair is enjoying the sunshine right now, so
there you go. You're on your own.
I'll try and struggle through it. Just on a side note, before I get into this report, just that health and safety, just FYI for council's knowledge. I'm not sure if you've ever, but the fire department actually has their own health and safety committee. That's not part of the joint one. And it's just, the reason is because our regulations are so vastly different than what the town part is for the municipal employees. And the fact that we have 80 employees, we kind of have to have our own. So we're at arm's length to the great work that Greg's doing. But we do have our own health and safety committee that I should probably bring you a report sometime, so you can know that the good work that they're doing. But just that our regulations are so vastly different, we don't want to bore the joint health and safety committee with all of our stuff that doesn't apply to them. So anyway,
more to come.
Yeah, and more to come on that note.
Apparently.
On that note, I just want to start the report saying that this is in the 11 years now that I've been doing this fire chief thing. This is the most change I've seen in the past few months that's happening in the fire service. There's a lot of changes going on and a lot of reports that you're going to see come. And this is one of the first ones that the province undertook a technical advisory committee they call it a table, a fire safety table, but it's a technical advisory committee with all the industry experts there, including all the unions. And they wanted to look at different aspects of our act. The FPPA, or the Fire Prevention and Protection Act, hasn't been touched since 1997 when it came into effect. So it does need some updating. There's no doubt about it. And the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, where I sit on, we agree with that. So these are some of the regulations that are out for comment. And the third one just dropped today, which was reporting, how we report to the Fire Marshal's office and how we report to the province. And Bill sent that out to me because we didn't even see that through the Fire Chiefs Association yet. So it tells you how far we rank as the Fire Chiefs Association, to be brutally honest, that we're getting a little bit of a say, but not much. It's very driven by other organizations. This one in particular was one that is being driven by other organizations, is the regulations on training. There's no doubt that there needs to be some regulations on training in the fire service. Up to this point, there's been no regulations on training. So you could be a full-time firefighter in the city and there's no regulations on what your training has to be. It's up to each individual municipality to decide what level of training they want to train their firefighters to. So, which I can tell by his reaction, nobody really knows that, but there was nothing, and that's what they're trying to rectify with this. So,
even full-time paid fire departments had no regulations yet?
Correct.
Wow.
It was up to the municipality to set what they wanted as a prerequisite to hire their firefighters, and they trained them on site. So this is going towards rectifying that, which again, the bulk of this I have no issues with. I think it is a good thing just to certify firefighters and to make sure that they know what they're doing. That the bridge that we're going to have to cross with our people is that they're going to have to get used to writing some tests, because they're going to have to become certified and write tests and pass exams. So it's going to make our recruitment in the future a little bit more difficult, because we have to be upfront and tell them that you have to write exams. That being said, our past two groups of recruits, we've made it optional. We said we're going to put you through the training, and you're going to do the training. And at the end, if you'd like to write your exam, then we'll facilitate that. And every single one of them has done it. They said, we've come this far, we've taken all the training, why wouldn't we write the exam and pass? So, which was a pleasant surprise to me, because it was really neat to see them do that. So I don't think that'll be a problem. The one major thing that I will see is in the specialty areas. Like people that operate the pumper trucks are now going to have to be certified. So we're going to have to make sure that we certify everyone that's going to be running a pumper truck, which in the volunteer fire service, you have no idea from day to day who you're going to get out, who's going to answer the call. So you're going to have to try and certify everybody. The other big area that I have a little bit of concern about is the specialty rescue teams. So we have our water rescue teams and we have our confined space team, which we did through the master fire plan. According to the new legislation, if passed and if not changed anymore, we're going to have to certify all of our members to that, and that is not grandfathered back. So right now, all of our existing firefighters will be grandfathered to the point of saying, you're a firefighter now, you're good, you can carry on. Anybody we hire after January 1st, 2019 will have to be certified. So those people are in, but the specialty rescue people, there's no grandfathering them, so they're going to have to all go back and take the exams, which again, we've never made them. They're trained to the level. As you've seen in the floods, they did a great job and they know their stuff, but we're going to have to put them through some testing to make sure that they get certified. So it's going to be a big step.
Through you, Mayor Bridge, and what would happen if they didn't make that certification? Then they couldn't be on the team anymore?
Correct. Then we would be liable if something had happened and they're not certified as a member of that team. We would be liable as a municipality for not providing certified that trainer. So.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bridge. So up until now, you train them. Everybody gets the same training, and they sign up that they've been trained.
Correct.
It might not be the right training, according to some people, but it's training.
Correct. Yeah, we train to the standard that they're going to test them on, which is it's called the NFPA standard. We train them to that standard now. We just don't test people because they're volunteer, and it's a big step. Some people, aren't in it to write tests and feel the pressure of writing exams and being tested on their practical skills. But I'm confident that all of our people are trained to that level and are sufficient in their training. So, on the note of AMO, so to summarize the AMO position on that is AMO's position on this is they're concerned that even if you grandfather all of your firefighters over after 2019, they're saying that they're concerned that the grandfathering is not going to be good enough. So if you have an incident and there's an accident or something happens and there's an investigation, they're saying liability-wise, you can say their grandfather, but they're saying that their recommendation might be that you certify everybody that the grandfathering is not good enough, because you have a firefighter that was hired and certified beside a firefighter that was grandfathered. That's what they're worried about, is the liability of that, which I'm not sure if I agree with, because we've grandfathered before in the fire service. So, and there's been no issues with that before. So I'm not saying I disagree with AMO, but I'm just not sure that is an extreme, that they're worried about the liability of that. So that'd be difficult.
Go ahead, Jean.
If I can speak to this letter, though, that came back in our communication here, they're talking about the possibility of having an arbitrator impose fire medic pilots or programs. They're not talking to the repercussions of having somebody not certified working. So I'm confused between. I get the regulations, I get the training, I understand the concerns. The cost will be huge, and the onus on your firefighters is going to be a big deal. But this business with the fire medic pilots and other programs?
So these are two separate, totally separate issues. So this one that we're talking about is just the new regulations in our act. That's the changes that they're trying to make to the Ambulance Act and other documents on a totally separate thing.
That's the one that came in the letter, though, saying about an attachment. There's no attachment to it to say that we can endorse it. So I don't know what they're actually wanting to say. So I thought that was going to
I think
two different issues.
That one, so that one, the arbitration wise on the fire medic thing, that's for full-time services only, for city ones. Okay. They're worried about when they negotiate their contract that the arbitrator is going to force this upon them.
Sure, they're going to say, you guys are doing it.
Right. Like other issues that have come up. So that has no effect on us at all. They're not even targeting or wanting to put that program in the volunteer fire world.
That's what I'm thinking. We've got two separate issues here. That's where my confusion. But there's nothing attached to that letter for us to sign off on. Okay.
And just on that, Kristen, your recommendation, and I agree with you. What happens with AMO sometimes, and in my own opinion, is they're city oriented more. Sometimes they forget about the rural. And so they like to have these nice rules, and I can understand what they're saying, but they'll be thinking again on fire departments that are full time, and why wouldn't they have if the guys are making $100,000 pass the test? But again, they're lumping us in with that, Gene, and so it's the opposite of what the other one was, which is the other one is sort of the concern was if they throw a pilot at us, eventually is that going to come back down to our level?
The fire medic might come down. But as you said, that's a totally different issue that I'll bring a report some other time once we get more information.
We've talked about that one before, right?
Yes, we have.
I think we have.
Yeah, it would actually benefit the rural area, but I'll give you a report on that one in a while.
So I just have another question then based on that. Are fire professionals covered by the Good Samaritan rule like healthcare professionals are? So if you went to a fire and a fellow had previous training, and we run into an enclosed space rescue or a water rescue, and he has prior knowledge, more experienced knowledge than the rest of the people there. He dives in to save the person's life, even though technically he's not certified to do it. Is he covered? Is he protected? Do you guys have anything like that? Because as a healthcare provider, I'm obligated to help if I have superior knowledge.
Right. In the FPPA, there's indemnification in there, so you can't sue or find liable with the firefighter.
Okay, so they'd come after the municipality.
They would come after the fire chief. It's identified. It's in plain language that the fire chief is not covered under that indemnification, and the municipality. Yeah. So where that would happen was the Ministry of Labor might come after us to say, or insurance to sue us.
And if this is gold standard, you'd be hard pressed to prove why you didn't train to the gold
Correct.
standard.
Okay. So
are we? You're saying on your recommendation that we support AMO on this? Yeah.
I think I have no problem supporting them, and what their comments are fine. I'm not like, I don't think it's going to go to that extent, but I think that we have no problem supporting what they're saying, that if it did come to fruition that we would be liable and we do have to certify everybody, we would lose a lot of firefighters.
Sure we would. Yeah.
So I have no problem supporting that. For them to go forward and say, we need to make sure that doesn't extend, that the grandfathering is in fact grandfathering, and there's going to be none of that. so we can support them. And I think just to be aware that we will possibly have some additional training dollars in the future that we're going to have to work on to get everybody trained and certified to these levels. So.
And sorry, this is near and dear to my heart. We work hand in hand with you guys. And we have people that could be grandfathered in, but as nurses, like the education is continuous. So I get that you don't want to have to recertify them, and people have a phobia about exams. They don't want to. They've got the knowledge, they know how to do the job, they're dead on, but they don't want to write that exam. But there has to be something to verify that people have come up with new standards. And I know you guys practice and things all the time.
So one of the things that, again, in a future report, because of all these changes that are going on fast and furious, is Kalisa's job has kind of evolved, and she's taking on a lot more responsibility with us. And so to answer your question, is our training records are becoming even more vitally important, right, that they're done properly, recorded, filed, all that stuff. And so that's one of the things that she's working on with our training people.
Right.
So once you're certified, that's great. But then we have to prove that they're continued to be certified and trained to that level.
Because you can be certified in something and not come across that instance for 5 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things she's working on is an improved filing and documentation system that we have all of our training documented.
Right.
And so that's not a burden on our volunteers. It's a burden on us to make sure that that's all done.
Okay.
Just to cover that off. So.
Right. So we have a recommendation. Jean? All in favor?
Thanks.
Up next is
Mayor Bridge.
Okay. On the Maitland Flood River.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. We are doing an update on the flood. There's a recommendation at not today's flood, but one that's back in June.
Read that next week.
Which flood is which?
First slide is of the location of the town of Minto and the size of the Maitland River watershed. So we heard about the warnings and watches throughout the Maitland River watershed, and there's a picture of the size of it. So it's, and the big blue arrow is the direction of the flow of the river. Then there's a slide that shows town of Minto, and the blue lines on there show the direction of flow into the town, and then the town of Harriston, the old town of Harriston, and then the direction of flow outside the town. So it's important to keep in mind for this review upstream impacts, in Harriston impacts, and downstream impacts as well. This next slide is a very interesting one. This is a slide of precipitation, soil moisture, and river flow the week before the flood and the June 23rd flood itself. So at the top, in the top part of the graph on the left, you see we had a storm on the 17th of June. And if you look down below that, you can see that the red line sort of jumps up. What that means is the soil moisture jumped up dramatically. And so what we had is a situation kind of like now with very high moisture in the soil and a low ability for it to absorb water. But if you look down below, the flow on the river hardly changed at all. So in the green line, it's basically flat for the whole week. Then when we had the storm on the 23rd through the midnight hours and into the early morning, you see the soil moisture jump right up again. Further, it never really went down. And then, of course, the flows just peaked sort of the day after the flood. So basically, it was a combination of the intensity of the rainfall and the moisture in the soil. And that combination caused the event that we had. This chart shows flows in the river back to 1981. So the yellow line there is basically the top of the peaks in the 30 plus years up till then, and then the flow we had on June 23rd was 78 cubic meters per second. So that's a lot more flow than we've ever had since 1981. In fact, if you were realistically showing it, it wouldn't actually show up on that graph. So the beauty of it is that we have excellent data now. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Just as a reminder, the rain began after 9 p.m. and we had 40 millimeters by midnight and plus 20 millimeters more by 4 a.m. The weather network ticker at midnight, and I was watching it at home, showed 35 millimeters in 1 hour in Mount Forest, and that was when I started to get a little bit worried. But between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. we had 95 millimeters of rain, so basically 170 millimeters, or if you're old-fashioned, 7 inches in 7 hours. But the bulk of that was less than 2 hours between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. When we went out in the field, 5:30 in the morning, we had storm sewer backups, much like we are having today. But then by the time we had kind of toured the municipality, Mike and I, we came back, those storm sewer backups had kind of cleared, and then the river began to rise, and it rose around 9 a.m. and peaked at 6 p.m. Fire department evacuated 6 homes. The water rescue team was deployed. They disconnected hydro services. The water receded within the floodway by Saturday morning, and we had all our roads open Saturday afternoon. Fire department used 542 staff hours during the 2 days of the event. We pumped out numerous basements and backyards, and the fire hall was a hub during the event for water and report occurrences. So that was, and we had some of our lifeguards down there helping out. The emergency operating committee met 5 times in 3 days. We did 11 media releases and 9 in 3 days. And there's the social media contact we had at Town of Minto and at Minto Fire. 64,000 average reach on Facebook and 25,000 impressions on Twitter. So it was very busy and people were watching. We had 3 media events, one at the fire hall in the morning, a conference call the mayor did with several media outlets here in his office, and an on-site meeting in the evening, which looking back, we probably would never move you again during an event like that, because we headed down to the site and the water all of a sudden decided to cross Arthur Street again. So. Between 5:37 a.m. on June 23rd and 11:03 p.m., I personally had 285 electronic transactions, not the least of which were meetings and other things happening, and then 420 from Friday through Sunday. So it was quite an interesting event, and say again how great our staff did. And we actually had a family thing to pick up stepdaughter in Detroit that Saturday, and so the fire chief stepped right in, and very seamless, but we were in communication too, so it was very well done, and lots of good things came out of that. A little bit on the radar, and this chart looks a little familiar from yesterday and today, but that H and the crosshairs there is roughly where Hairston is, and you can see that red and yellow kept rolling over us hour after hour. And then at 4:30 a.m. you can see it sort of looks like, well, we're not in the storm as much anymore, but we were. And in fact, the storm was apparently so intense it was not picked up in the overlapping of the Environment Canada radar. So that's why it kind of looks like it did. And not that there wasn't warnings out there, but I don't think anyone they weren't seeing the kinds of things that were actually happening in the ground. And then you can see by 6:15 a.m. that things have cleared up a little bit. It really didn't rain a whole lot the rest of the day, but I think almost everybody heard it between 4 and 6, and it was something sort of uncanny. There's a bit of a shot of what the downtown of Hairston looked like. A couple of quick shots of before and after. That's George Street South, sort of before and then after. And then our Hairston Park, before and after. This is basically out my front door, looking down the street, and then what it looked like that morning. Our lawn bowling facility, luckily everybody had left.
Yeah, otherwise they would have to have life jackets on.
The bridge at Laura Street, there's a little storm sewer in the corner. Whenever I'm worried about things, I always drive by and look at where the water was. This morning it was not over that little storm sewer in the corner. It is now, and of course on that day it touched the top of that, and I don't think we had much more than an inch to spare, or 25 millimeters. This is down the other end of my street, and it was quite a wide swath of water. And then at our pumping station down by Yonge and King, we have since raised those 3 pipes that kind of cover our well heads. We've raised them up now, so hopefully they will never be underwater again. That was the reason we were under boil water advisory, is that those went underwater. we didn't really need to do that, but it's a good thing I think we did. Since June 23rd, we've all been in recovery. We've had contractors, insurance, and going through the disaster relief, and that's still ongoing. And unfortunately, I believe today some people have had floods in their basement again. So it's very, very sad and unfortunate. July 26th, we did a debriefing with the various organizations, and then August 1st, we did an update to you on municipal drains and some of the direction we needed to go, and that's when we applied for the flood mapping mitigation program, and you gave consent to that August 1st. And then September 5th, you received the after action report. So I just wanted to let you know and remind you and people that we haven't forgot. We are still working, and we're hopeful that as we go forward, some good things will come out of the event. We were going to have a public meeting in the fall, and people were just still consumed with recovery, and the Maitland Valley group was waiting for some modeling information to come in. So we've decided that after further meetings to have our meeting in May. I'll get you more information on that here shortly. Since the flood event, the Conservation Authority has been monitoring and modeling the flood again, and the citizens are still recovering, and that's occupying a lot of time. On November 3rd, Linda Dixon and the Treasurer applied for our disaster relief funding. On December 12th, you funded $66,000 of that in the draft budget. And then December 19th, we had another drain update to you again. At that time, we let you know that our NDMP grant had actually made through the provincial scrutiny and is now at the federal level. January 25th, we had another debrief meeting with the Conservation Authority staff. We're expecting a decision on the NDRP grant any time now, probably early March. In speaking with our contractor, the LiDAR mapping should be flown in March. That's when the snow cover is off and the vegetation is pressed down, so you'll get your best imagery at that time. And you'll see in the recommendation we're asking for your permission to fly that, even though we may not have the grant yet. The accuracy of that mapping is to within a Tim Hortons cup, so it's very accurate mapping. And the good news was we had paid for expanded gauge program about 3 years ago in the Maitland River, and that cost us $20,000. And the good news was that they had all that information when it actually did storm, and they've been able to model Hurricane Hazel again using this information. And the flow that is coming out of Hurricane Hazel is lower than what we had used to model our previous floodplain maps. So that means we may receive some relief in our floodplain mapping, but that remains to be seen. After we get that information back, we'll have to put those new maps in our zoning bylaw. This is a shot of a house on Queen Street, and that middle shot is actually a shot from Hurricane Hazel. And then the shot again to the right is that same home on June 23rd. So the level was a little bit higher in Hazel, actually. And had we had Hurricane Hazel, we believe that probably the Elora Street Bridge would have backed over, so it would have been a lot worse. So our suggested meeting is May 29th at 7 o'clock at the Harrison Minto Community Complex. We'll have MVCA, county, and town staff at that meeting. We'll go over what happened, and the Conservation Authority will show some of the slides I showed tonight and much better slides and give a full weather explanation of what exactly happened. We'll look jointly at the response to the flood, and then we'll talk about what's next, and we'll do a joint presentation on that. And after the meeting, we'll have the public can visit with anybody they would like from the staff to talk about issues that they may have. I mentioned when we would like to fly the LiDAR, as they call it, and I don't remember exactly what the acronym means, but it means really, really accurate 3D photography that will let us set the hydrology model. And when we're looking at solutions, we're looking upstream of Harrison, in Harrison, and downstream of Harrison. So summer and fall, we'll go through some of those solutions. We'll do some engineering analysis if we get our grant, and then there'll be another meeting in November as a follow-up We'll probably have draft floodplain mapping at that time, and then we'll start talking about some of the solutions and put some of them forward in budget 2019. And that's when we'll put the floodplain mapping into our planning documents. So our recommendation is to receive the report and that council support the scheduled events as outlined at the May 29th meeting and consent to the LiDAR imaging work proceeding in March. Even if we don't get the grant, the cost of the mapping is less than the $66,000.
No, it's not. I have a question, if that's right, to you, Mayor Bridge. And that was my question, is the cost of the LiDAR. Second, are we still eligible for the grant if we do the LiDAR before the grant is approved?
We believe yes, and we think we'll still have our decision anyway, but we would like our QR contractor up now so that they can be ready to fly in March. I think we'll have our decision before they actually do fly, but even if we don't have our decision, we don't believe will affect our grant.
And then my third question is it in our budget?
Yes, it is in your budget as it stands right now. 66,000. It's 132,000, half funded from grant and half funded from our funds.
So the 66,000 would cover the work if we did not get the grant.
That's right. What wouldn't happen is there's some engineering analysis and some impacts that we would want to do after the mapping is flown and prepared by the Conservation Authority. We wouldn't have the benefit of that work unless we were to pay for that in full.
But I think the problem is, Bill stated earlier, the best time to do it is March. So if we don't do it, or as it turns out, we probably do it tomorrow.
Now that my questions have been answered.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? I think it's a great report, and
It's a really good report.
looking forward to having that meeting and coming up with some solutions. All in favor? Carried.
Here, next up. Thank you, Mayor Bridge. Street names for Creek Bank Meadows subdivision. Had a early unveil for you, prematurely.
Yeah, I saw that.
These names came unbeknownst to any of us, including yourself. And the names that have been brought forward are Bridge and Stevenson, and they're all veterans out of Palmerston. Now, there were 5 Bridge family members. And that one picture in particular there looks uncannily like Aaron, if you don't mind me saying.
Which one's that?
The first one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
It does, yeah.
That's not Dad.
No, Dad's in the middle there,
Yep.
or second one from the left. And now when we spoke to the county, there are actually Bridge Road elsewhere and a Stevenson Road. So they're asking that we use acronyms Crescent or Court. So we've selected Bridge Crescent for Street A, and Stevenson Way for the road that would connect Main Street to Bridge Crescent. So, and speaking to Mr. Gill and the county, they are fine with doing it in that fashion. So our recommendation is that you go with the names Bridge and Stevenson and Way and Crescent.
By David, second by Judy.
Question.
Question 2.
Question. So usually a crescent comes back out the road.
Mm-hmm.
This one does not.
So Street A it's a cul-de-sac. So you could call it Bridge Court, but then it was quite long. So I think we're okay with Crescent there. And then the Way is the connection between the Crescent. I mean, I'm happy to change it to Court if you would rather have Court.
And these are street names somewhere else in Wellington County?
Apparently there's a Bridge Road and a Stevenson Road somewhere else in Wellington.
Well, I think there's a Bridge Street in Fergus.
How are we possibly going to avoid?
Oh, yeah.
Like they're not. It's not that there's another street in Palmerston by that name.
I know.
Exactly.
We had that discussion, and this was. I think the county would prefer if we would select something like Court or Crescent. Court, Crescent, and Way were the 3 that came from them.
It's to do with emergency services.
Yes.
So they have a problem that sometimes it doesn't come up as a municipality right away for emergency services. It'll just say Bridge Court or Bridge Street. Well, in the queue in the dispatch, like in the Bell telephone drop,
let's say Bridge Street, and then I give you 3 different municipalities that it's in it. So it's up to the dispatcher then to try and narrow it down and figure out which one it actually is in the municipality, but checking cross streets and stuff like that. So I think the rationale is if it's a unique name, then there's not going to be that conflict on the computer-aided dispatching system. If it says Bridge Crescent, there's only one in the county, so it'll automatically say Bridge Crescent, Minto, and then it'll narrow it down to Palmerston. So that's where they're having issues because of the systems, because everybody's amalgamated now. So they had some problems with huge problems. I know when I worked in the ambulance in Mapleton because it was Queen Street, Drayton, Queen Street, Moorfield.
Yeah.
We would encompass Queen Street, Mapleton, because that's the way Bell would identify it. When you're responding, you don't know whether you're going to Moorfield or you're going to Drayton. So the same thing would happen. I think that they're thinking with the street names that would come up with 3 different municipalities. I think we'll waste a lot of time trying to figure out which municipality it's actually in. So this just helps clarify for that there's one unique name because of the Crescent or whatever's after it. It's in the system will recognize it as that street in Minto - Palmerston.
So the recommendation says Way, Court, or Crescent, and we could leave it to them to pick the end. That's our suggestion to you.
Did you second the motion?
Sure.
Are you all right with the discussion? I think we have to lean a little bit to them as far as that goes.
Yeah.
There must be a reason.
Sure.
All in favor?
Me again, Mayor Bridge.
Yep.
The Clifford Elora Street tender. Our 2018 budget has $3,470,000 this year and $500,000 next, for a total of almost $4 million to reconstruct Elora from Park to West Heritage. You can recall last year, for just over $315,000, we did first section of this work by Steeden Evans, a different contractor, with engineering and so forth, design of phase 2 and 3. Last year's expenditures were around $400,000. So this year we put out to tender the work, and we're pleased to get 3 bids, and Triton provided a bid summary. Steeden Evans, Cox Construction, and Moorfield Excavating. The lowest bid was Moorfield Excavating at $3,528,383.50. That is a corrected bid. There is a mathematical error that they have picked up. That is the lowest bid, and that is the one we're recommending. As outlined in the report, when you add in engineering and contingencies and HST, project is $4.1 million, so it's about $168 to almost $200,000 over budget when you throw in all those things. $100,000 of that is contingency. We also have funding coming from the Main Street program, so that would help offset some of the overage as well. I think it's around $30,000 or $40,000 in there. So as part of our recommendation, we're asking for your permission to have a look at the project in more detail as we go and report back on how we'll fund or reduce the streetscape and contingency to try and get closer to budget. And that way you can give a clear direction on exactly how much the treasurer borrows for the project. There's lots of little things that we can look at. There's extra streetlights in it. We might be able to put a few streetlights in a different project and run them down Allen Street. There's more than the number we need. We may not need curbs out at one section of the project because we'll be having development go ahead. We may have a developer wanting to go ahead at the same time we're going, and they'll make a contribution. So we're very confident that while the project is over, we can eliminate that overage either from funding sources or from not applying the contingency. We're suggesting that we award it at $3.528 million to Moorfield Excavating.
Questions? Happy in a way, because one of the nice things about Moorfield is they did Harrison, so they have a good idea of doing downtowns, and so that's kind of nice. So I think we can get it within budget. We're pretty close. Moving a second. Judy, all in favor?
Mayor Bridge, we have a temporary driveway agreement with Brandon Rump for 53 Lawrence Street West. And I have provided a bit of a drawing of that area. This is Lawrence Street, and John Street.
Right.
In Harrison. Lawrence Street, we signed an agreement with Wellingdale Construction to extend Lawrence Street to service 5 lots. This is one of those lots on the corner of what would be a John Street extension and the extension of Lawrence Street. The John Street extension has not been built. We do own the land, but technically the road is not there, so this is not a corner lot. Mr. Rumpf would like to use that land, which is municipal property, for his driveway access, and he's designed his home as if it were on the corner lot, and we're prepared to allow him to do that as long as he signs this agreement. Basically, he takes over responsibility for the driveway. He has to maintain it, take care of it, and then when the town or the developer puts the road in, then he has to, at his own expense, connect his driveway to the new road. So he'd be carrying $2 million liability and be naming us as an additional insured in order to use the land. And he would be signing and has signed this agreement, and that it's our recommendation that we allow him to proceed in that fashion. The yellow spaces on the road allowances are sections that we need yet to acquire, but that will show you what the road pattern will look like in the future once we do acquire those road allowances.
Questions?
Mayor Bridge, sorry, what is the black circle at the end of John? Is that a turnaround or?
Right, if I may, through you, Mayor Bridge, that would be a turnaround. That would be temporary until the Sinclair farm, which is beside there, were to ever develop. And someone would have to come in and do a rezoning, I believe, and a draft plan of subdivision there. But it would basically be future access to that subdivision. Until that went in, it would be a turnaround.
So presently, the road, corner of Lorne and John, how far does that go?
It goes 5 lots up there now. He's actually built it, and he's built a temporary turnaround on his own property there on one of the lots. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions? Somebody move that? David? Dean? All in favor? Good. All right. Growth plan.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. I try not to bore you with a lot of detail here, but
we have an hour for this, Bill. We have an hour.
And I have props tonight, so I'm going to use them, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we're doing this for an hour.
I promise not to be that long.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to introduce you to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and that became effective July 1st, and it builds upon the foundation of provincial policy. Provincial land use policy is this document right here, and it's, that'd be a few millimeters thick. It's not very long.
No.
But the new policies take precedence over that now. And if you look at the map, lucky for us, Minto in the far northwest corner is subject to the growth plan.
You're lucky, yes.
So that's not a good thing,
no,
frankly, for the town, because it means now that what was once provincial policy, this has now been replaced with this provincial policy right here. So that's really wonderful.
Anybody can borrow that if they want. And,
I'm a planner, and not even I like to read it. But what it means is that we're in the outer ring of the Greater Golden Horseshoe Plan area, and as being in that means that these rules in this several millimeters of document, or several inches if you're old-fashioned, is now our new planning control provincially. So in that lovely document, series of documents, our designation for our urban areas is built up areas conceptual. That means a whole lot, but basically the rules for Minto and for our settlement areas are totally different than they are in Grey County, and North Perth, and any abutting municipality on us, except for Wellington North and Mapleton. So around us, it's this policy. In the Greater Golden Horseshoe, it's this policy. So that's what came out of the growth plan for the town of Minto. It's a much more regimented process by the province. It's designed to have better land use planning and to protect agricultural areas, and that's an important concept, I think. The policy work is in a context of climate change and other provincial policy initiatives. And in this outer ring, as we call it, they're asking us to develop at no less than 80 residents and jobs combined per hectare. What we're talking tonight about is the methodology that they've put on for review, and using that methodology, the best I can determine, Clifford will be developing at about half that density. So what they're talking about is throughout this plan, forcing settlement areas to develop at much higher densities than we've ever been used to in settlement areas. So that's one thing. Now, there are some exceptions, and if you read the document, only 50% of this and so forth. So I think they're sort of weaning us towards something that's going to be quite a bit different. So in 2041, I think settlement areas in Ontario will look quite a bit different if this remains in place. The specific policies in the growth plan will require upper and lower tiers to establish a hierarchy of settlement areas. So throughout the county, they will prepare a list of settlement areas and which ones will get growth and which ones won't. So you can imagine what that's going to look like when the time comes to do that. Also within that hierarchy of settlement areas, you'll have to do full life cycle costing on your infrastructure improvements. You have to make sure you have compact built form, maintain transit and transportation corridors, complete communities, protect the environment, and all of those very lofty goals. But I think it could be done under this policy rather than a whole lot of other stuff that they're trying to tell you. What we're here tonight about, now that I can get off my soapbox just a little bit, is the methodology for assessing land needs. This has been posted on the Environmental Bill of Rights, and it's basically there for people to comment on. But unfortunately, it's a 135-page discussion paper on how to calculate future community land area need and employment land area needs. So there's no doubt they are consulting, but what they're consulting on is very, very difficult for anyone other than a practicing technical person to keep up with and to provide any real valid comment to them. So the methodology that we're talking about, and I gave you the link there in case you're really curious, you can go in and read it through yourself. It will govern development through to 2041, so the next 25 years. And the results of that land assessment will be used to inform the work of municipalities in applying the policies of the growth plan. So when we go to update our own official plan, this will be how we do a municipal comprehensive review process. So they basically written in a 132-page manual what we used to be able to do in a few good pages of analysis. The practice that you apply here in Minto will be the same as they do in Brampton, Cambridge, Waterloo, whatever. So the cost of this I'm calling it centralized control. Essentially centralized the planning decisions back to the province. Back after the Harris government decentralized the planning, the provincial policy was even smaller than this, and a lot of local decision making was farmed out to communities. In Owen Sound, where I worked back then, we had all the approval authorities for all our planning documents. We were able to do that without a whole lot of provincial guidance. It was a lot of good things were able to happen, and unfortunately, the province since then has worked at eroding that authority from you. So this is the new realm in the Greenbelt area in the Golden Horseshoe. When they talk about removing the OMB, they have removed the OMB in favor of more local decision making, but that local decision making must comply with all this. So I would argue that there is much less flexibility and probably no real benefit to the town of change to the OMB, but that remains to be seen. As far as the methodology, which is what we're really here to comment on, I put in a recommendation, a few points that we're asking that you consider adopting. That you are not approved, that the province not approve the methodology as a document, it just used as a guideline document only. That municipalities in the outer ring, which is us, of the Greater Golden Horseshoe, under 15,000 population, be exempt from the methodology, or that specific exemptions be included for settlement area expansion in the outer ring where urban areas will have a population under 5,000. As long as we meet the growth targets that are set by the county, we should be able to develop those without having to go through the processes that are outlined in that new planning document. and that council expressed concern about loss of local decision-making in rural Ontario created by the growth plan, associated documents and methodology, and resulting centralized provincial control, particularly as it pertains to minor settlement area expansion in rural areas far from the greater Golden Horse. So it's a lot to talk about. I hope you enjoyed reading that report. And I must say I have not enjoyed reading the planning documents, but there's no doubt that there was a lot of consultation, a lot of thought put into it. And there's no doubt they're steering us in a direction that the province wants us to go. But unfortunately, it's going to dramatically impact on our ability to change and grow our settlement area. And what's the same for Palmerston will be the same for Cambridge and Metro Toronto. That's our recommendation.
How much commonality is in the two documents? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of gobbledygook in that 2 inches of paper.
I think the documents, and in fairness, there's 4 documents there. One is the Greenbelt Plan, one is the Growth Plan, one is the Oak Ridges Moraine Plan, and one is the Niagara Escarpment Plan. So they don't all really have the same sort of impact on us, but they all are interlinked. There are municipalities will have almost all those plans applying to them, and they'll be in a far worse shape than us.
Bush lunch.
Exactly. So how much commonality is there? There's quite a bit of little linkages in there. We sat through a webinar on Friday about watershed planning, and in the Greenbelt areas, there are dozens of municipalities that will be subject to new watershed planning regulations. Well, we're not subject to those.
Are they that bad? Are they pushing back?
So the county has been monitoring this, and there was a report about the expansion of the Greenbelt in Plessis. Yeah. So they are pushing back. In looking back, I would have loved to have understood the potential for this impacting us, but I don't see how we could have ever stopped it. This was coming regardless of what we wanted.
And I guess just to add to that, what originally when I was looking at how it was going down, and I thought, well, even Senator Wellington was going to get hit a little hard because they were bringing Greenbelt into there. I always felt we were going to be saved because when you look at the mapping, there's no Greenbelt here, there's nothing, whatever. But then we got snagged somehow because of Wellington County being in the thing, that they just snagged us. So what bothers me about this whole thing, and I think Bill's pointed it out, is so we've already got concerns sometimes when Grey County doesn't have development charges at a county level, and Perth has different things that they get away with. And here we are again. We're going to be at a disadvantage. And, so Clifford, we're going to get high rises, basically want us to have high rises in Clifford. That'd be nice. I just hope this government can wake up someday, or whatever government's in there, and say, you got to get out of this business and allow us. The fact that they were getting rid of the OMB I thought was good until they brought this in, and basically they could get rid of the OMB because there's no control, and they got total control. So I think you've done a good job, Bill, and thank goodness you've at least got a playing background and read that stuff, because I'm sure other councils at our level aren't getting this kind of feedback. And pass it on to some of our others like Wellington North and whatever, because this is a great report. And I think this recommendation, we should be getting Wellington North and Mapleton involved in Wellington County and letting them know that this is a scary thing. I like the recommendation, and I certainly support that. But hopefully we've got maybe a little window here. The election's coming up, and cooler heads will prevail, but it's pretty scary stuff. And I'm not going to the special. Mr. Crombie's getting a big award for his work on this. Sorry.
I just want to move the recommendation and thank Bill for his excellent report.
All in favor? And I know the county was quite up. The planning department has been fighting hard on this as well, and they're not happy.
Good. That's good.
We are here. All right. I'll turn it over to Mary Lou.
And the Finance Committee just has one item on the agenda tonight, and it's the approval of accounts, and it's a big one, though.
Thank you, Chair Caldwell. We're one report, but two sections, and and one isn't as big as it looks at the first glance. So, under our $700,000 in admin, 500 of that is just moving money. As we talked about when we modified your investment policy, we've taken some money out of the bond fund and put it into a credit union. So it's not exciting, but it's maybe a little more stable
It's a
and,
good place
and
for it. I don't think
positive.
the bond fund, we're not going to see much growth in that bond fund.
I'm afraid not. I probably will do more of that. And then another kind of a good news thing, we gave the county $51,000 in supplemental taxes, which means we've had growth. It's better than, I don't really like to be in a receivable there because that means we've written off more than what we've gained, so that part's good. And roads, even though it's January, we're still paying fall invoices, so there's almost $300,000 in paving and patching roads at the end of 2017, and that accounts for most of our road work, a bit more sidewalk, and we did some work on the Minto Pines water. We got a flow metrics, and that was about $13,000 there, and I think there's some more to come there. So those are the highlights in our first report there. That's over $1 million. And then in the second one, it's a lot smaller, 300. We've bought some radios for the fire department, about 32,000. Pump for the wastewater this time, 6,700. It was one of those things that had to be done right away. And we've been buying, not surprisingly, sand and salt in the roads department for about 35,000. So those are the highlights there.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? The recommendation is that council receive the treasurer's report dated February 18th regarding approval of accounts and approves the accounts by department for January 31st and February 15th. Councillor Dirksen, seconded by Mayor Bridge. All in favor? And it's passed, and I turn the chair back to Mayor Bridge.
I'll turn it over to Dave.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. Welcome Mr. Mike McIsaac here tonight from the Roads and Drainage Foreman, and he's got a selling the truck here. 2000. Was that an international?
It was, yeah. The 2004, yeah.
So go ahead, Mike.
Okay, this is my first PowerPoint presentation that Bill helped out significantly with. But so back in August of last year, we brought a new proposed winter control program to council here, and we have received some positive feedback. We're still waiting to see how the whole season does turn out, with another report coming back to you at a later date. We're trying to come up with a way to maximize the use of our current equipment and allowing us to combine equipment to almost lessen our fleet out there. With this proposal, we would be reducing 2 trucks from the fleet and using our other equipment more to the maximum. We currently have the 3 tandem plow trucks, and we would be reducing that down to 2, 5 single axle trucks, bringing that down to 4, with the potential cost savings there in the future, the equipment replacement program. Right now, the current plan has a 10 to 15 year truck replacement for our larger trucks, and just with the last unit that we got rid of in 2016, it was about 17 years old. So we do keep them longer than what the plan does propose, but we also have to deal with our budgetary restraints there as well. I think there's nothing more there. So moving forward, this is the sort of the equivalent to what we would be looking at purchasing. We would be downsizing even once again to like a series, like a 550 Ford or a 5500 series Dodge or equivalent. with the truck and then some multi-use items with it in the future here. So these pictures here are showing the top two, center and to the right is a coal patch box attachment that would allow ease for the guys out there in the township and be able to carry a larger load of coal mix with them and just replenish that box as they're going around. And then underneath there's a leaf vac system, and the box to the right is also an enclosure for the leaf vacuuming as well as our wood chipping from the trees. Currently, the truck that we're proposing with the replacement, the one that we're currently using is used for snow removal, coal patching, as well as water main and sewer breaks in the wintertime. Some of the smaller excavations during that time. The burials in the cemetery, it's a lot more maneuverable in tighter areas. Another thing that we are kind of looking at is the opportunity to replace our larger tandems with the used tandem axles from the county. That was brought to our attention a couple of years ago, and we're really entertaining that idea right now. And there's communications that have started with the county, and that will be coming back to council at a later date as well.
Counties put theirs is they replace every 5 years.
Every 7.
Every seven
yeah.
bigger ones. That's
yeah.
right. Every 7.
Yeah. So with this here, the total cost for the vehicle replacement plan has the potential to be reduced from the $400,000 per year to $333,000 per year, and then even with some of these other potential cost-saving measures, that could even be reduced even more in the future. And this kind of shows the dollar values that we're combining those 3 trucks down to one that's has the potential of being $150,000 or less for everything proposed there. Then that's the recommendation. Is there any questions before?
Questions for Mike? Mike, you've done an excellent job here.
I think you have to think
of.
Sorry, I do have a question on slide, I don't know, page 8 of 9. It has the 3, it's just up one slide from where, yeah, that one.
Yep.
You have 3 trucks there with values on.
Yep.
I had understood there were 2 that were going to get.
So basically, we're replacing the one that's at the top.
Yes.
But the combined, right, if we do deem those other 2 plow trucks as surplus, the values from them would go towards the purchase of the new one as well.
So we may be getting rid of 3 then, rather than 2.
So yes.
Okay.
Yeah. 3 turned into 1.
Yes.
Basically, yes. Yeah.
With money left over.
Yep.
Bridge?
Yeah, just it's probably in here, but the attachments.
Yep.
Is that in the 150,000?
Yes, it's all included.
It's all in.
Yeah.
As I know, we talked about the leaf thing, and we've had concerns about the leaves getting in our drains and causing problems. Yeah. We never had anything like that. That from a manpower standpoint, I think when we looked at it one time, the cost of doing it. So if you actually had a piece of equipment that would do it, it makes more sense that we might be able to bring that service out there.
Yeah.
Does everybody understand what I'm saying?
But you still need somebody to operate.
Yeah, but before, Gene, we didn't have like something that would suck up the leaves, so we're basically having to rake them, put them in, scoop them up with the scoop. We'd have 3 or 4 guys working on it. We didn't have the dollars and people to do it.
Yeah, and even before, like the way we were doing it, we were waiting till like a wetter time of the year, so they're not blowing around. So this way we can get out there at multiple times of the year, even before, and try to capture more before it becomes a problem.
Just to follow,
2 guys can do it.
Yeah. Just a follow up was as you talked about your snow removal. I keep getting, I don't know about the rest of the council, but I keep getting really good reports on the downtown. And they keep saying, how much is that costing us? And I said, well, technically, I think we'll see what happens at the end of the year, but I think when we figure it all out, it might not cost as much as we used to do it when we had to come in with equipment at night and do it. So,
yeah.
So I think really thinking outside the box here, I give you guys a lot of credit for coming up with some innovative ideas to try to, one, reduce the amount of vehicles we have and still get the job done and even get some improvements on the jobs. Kudos.
Questions? Go ahead. Councillor Dirksen.
Sorry, wasn't sure who you were looking at. Yeah, it's great having it's great seeing plows out in the country as well in the afternoon.
Yeah,
is that helping us with not having employees who are maxing out on their time?
That it is helping out.
That's good.
We don't have to worry about overtime. Before, some of the guys were, like, when we were trying to do more in one shift,
yeah,
their hours were getting extended into the afternoons. This way, even if they're not going out in the afternoons, they're available for instances like today or coal patching during the nice hours of the day.
Right.
So it is working out so far.
And you haven't had any problem finding people to run the equipment?
In the morning?
Yeah,
it's getting tougher and tougher each year to find.
Yeah.
And I think it's across the county as well, finding part-time staff to run equipment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bill wants.
Councillor Anderson, were you?
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Bill wants to talk.
While the motion's on the floor, just very quickly, I echo the mayor's comments. It's nice to see $750,000 trucks turned into one $150,000 truck. And I know that Mike has more ideas to come forward. One of the ones he talked to me about was we have 2 graders. We only need the 2 graders in the winter. We don't need 2 in the summer. So would we look at, when our next grader goes, instead of spending $500,000 to replace that, maybe renting one in the winter? And also he's looked at municipality of Meaford up in the snow belt areas on southern Georgian Bay is using large tractors to remove the snow in the downtowns, which are much more maneuverable, and whether we would someday go to tractors when our next plow trucks come up.
And on that one, I think we have some people out there that have equipment that don't get used in the winter time, but they need it in the summer. So it's a good opportunity to do some of that cost sharing. Like maybe have those tractors available to us in the winter when they're not being used.
Yeah.
So I think those are all. As Bill said, you're coming up with some great ideas.
We're looking into some different things here for sure. Yeah. Just when Gord talks about the roads department spending all the money, it's kind of nice to look at.
You do have a big piece of it, but you have a lot of infrastructure there, Mike.
Mike, it says 3 trucks shown would be auctioned. What is the opportunity for disposal? Is there an auction market for these?
So what we do with a lot of our equipment, and we've done in the past, is there's a municipal government auction website that we have been using. The county uses it as well. It's basically, instead of having to take it to an auction site, we give them the pictures, all the information. If somebody wants to come, they come here. It's on for as long as we want. We can put a reserve bid. If it doesn't meet that reserve, we keep it and try it at a later date. So it has been working fairly well, and we have been historically been receiving more money for what we were thinking of anyways. Yeah.
Good. So the recommendation is that the council receives the road and drainage foreman's presentation public works truck replacement, approves tendering to replace the 2004 International single axle with a heavy duty 550, 5500 or similar truck, plus an aluminum box and attachment. That 1 tandem and 1 single axle plow truck be identified as surplus to be considered for auction when council allows the tender and staff bring forward information on changing the vehicle replacement plan to buy surplus county tandem trucks to replace the tandem trucks remaining in our fleet. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Anderson, Councillor Dirksen, all in favor of this motion? Against? That's carried. Mike, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I wonder if Mike could give us a bit of an update on our road situation. I will say that our wastewater foreman has been out, and we are reaching close to bypass on our Hairston treatment facility just because of the amount of water going into that. But they're dealing with that now still. So
Yeah.
But there were a couple of roads closed, and
So the 12th line from Road 1 North to County Road 6, there was an ice jam at the bridges there, which has forced the water over the road similarly to the June 23rd event. About 50 meters or so is underwater, so we have had to close that road even with ice on the road right now. So William Street and the intersection of William and George Street North was underwater. There was some properties that took on some water in their basements, we believe. That was under control when I had left them last before council. And then George Street South and Maitland, that intersection there, it was underwater quite heavily this afternoon as well, but it has since subsided. And then other than that, I think everything else was okay as of an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. But the water is still rising for sure. Yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Mike, when we talked before the council meeting, you were thinking about going on to private property. Did you end up having to do that?
We didn't have to do that. We looked at, I did get talking with the property owner. We looked at the situation, and by that time, the pumping at William Street had started to subside, so we just were going to stay with that. And we are going to be looking at some different options here in the nicer weather for those areas as well. We seem to see a lot of different flows with this event just because of the surface water runoff coming from different areas that we didn't see before. So it was an eye-opener.
Councilor Caldwell.
When are we expecting the peak of this one?
This one here, I'm not 100% sure when they've said that. It's
They're talking about, if I may, another 20 millimeters tonight.
Yeah.
So tomorrow probably the peak. Not sure that the river will overflow its banks. It remains to be seen. But we're watching that. What we're dealing with is runoff from farm fields that gets backed up by snowbanks, and then it works its way through the bank, and then it flushes through onto our roads. So it changes minute by minute. George Street behind my house was more or less passable. It was just flowing over that, and then by the time I went home for lunch, it was
completely
drive around. So that was within about an hour. So
yeah,
it was kind enough for the landowner, the farmers, to help us out, and I think we've learned some things again here. And we talked about upstream mitigation. This is maybe some things we can do permanently that will help with these flush situations.
Yeah, for sure.
Was there any concern over at Bell Street? Because I know that before
there was concern yesterday, I believe, but I don't believe anything.
Well, I hadn't heard from Mark, so Mark had put some stuff over there and was ready to work on it if there was a problem.
So they were monitoring that pretty heavily this morning. I haven't heard anything
about Bell
that
Street,
has been compromised. So
I'm sure I would have got an email.
Yeah, for sure.
If I may, it's normal for high flows in Palmerston and Hairston to bypass, so our pumps all get working, and we have to rent pumps to come in to keep up with the water. So we're at that situation now in Hairston, but Mark Robertson and Wayne Metzger and Mike were all on top of all of these things. Going back, we had a lot of our catch basins cleared, but things happen quickly, and no event is exactly the same. So I think they've done a great job, and it's been a long day for a lot of people.
One good thing that has happened with this as well is the duration of it. It has been spread out over a longer period of time, which has allowed a lot of the water to get through Hairston already as well. So we're hoping for the best.
Good, Mike. We'll make sure your guys know that we're all thinking about them. We're pretty proud of them.
Yep.
They're yeoman duty again tonight. So thank you. And I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. Okay. What do we got left here?
Additional items, I think.
Additional items. Oh, something. Gene.
I would like to bring forward a motion from our closed session. that council direct staff to initiate procedures under the disposition of land bylaw to convey to quality homes less than 0.29 acres of town-owned lands on the former Harrison Senior School property, including giving notice in the Wellington Advertiser and Minto Express that a bylaw authorizing the mayor and the CAO clerk to execute all documents related to the transaction will be considered at the March 20th, 2018 meeting. The report come forward in open session March 6th regarding declaring the land surplus and then an assessment of the value of the lands to be transferred to Quality Homes.
All in favor? Anybody else got anything? I've got a couple. Oh, Judy, go ahead.
And I'm sorry I missed the question.
Okay.
So the Wellington Farm Home Safety Association, we are having a breakfast. This is at the Alma Community Center, also known as the ACC, on Saturday, March 3rd, starting at 9 a.m. So there'll be food there, breakfast.
Always do a good job there.
Presentations, grab bags, door prizes, and that kind of thing. My understanding is that there will be a similar event. I don't think it's going to be a breakfast, but it'll be a safety day in Minto in May, and the date we just haven't tied down quite yet.
Excellent. Good.
Anyway, so yeah, come on down and get some pancakes.
And thank you, Judy, for taking that on, because it's an important group, and
they're a very busy group.
Yep. Appreciate that. Just a couple items that I have, and we had a meeting. When was that? It was February 14th. February 14th is Valentine's Day for our rural transportation down at Boyne, and I was able to attend. Quite a few people there. We had groups from Rideco, Guelph Transit. There was a lot of service groups that like VON and different places talking about rural transportation. As you remember, we were able to do a pilot, and now we're going for more funding to flush it out. There was a survey put out there, so out of 639 surveys, 89% of the people support some kind of transportation system in rural Wellington. I know, Jean, you've mentioned that you'd like to be involved a little bit. We have, at this point in time, it's just information gathering, but we've definitely, I was impressed with a couple things, and one of the things I was impressed with was this Rideco, and it's a new, kind of an Uber system that they have. One of the biggest problems we have, and I always felt in the rural, was you don't have you can't fill up a big bus. They're talking about a lot of these big buses are a thing of the past, and you're not going to see these big Greyhounds going down the road. You're going to see these 14 passenger type units that can go 4 times a day. And this Rideco is a ride sharing program. So in other words, if I wanted to book a ride, and I know I've got to go down to Guelph to a doctor's appointment or something, I can book into this the day before. I have a time when I have to be at my doctor's office. They can actually, with the system they've got, and they're worldwide with this group, they could say, okay, anybody else that needs a ride to Guelph within that time frame, in the next little while, and they would contact the drivers. The drivers go on, they have a fleet of drivers. So even taxi companies could be involved in this as well. Like, they have some cases where taxi guys are involved in it. But it's a ride share program. In other words, so it cuts the cost down. And the VONs and other places that they're having trouble getting volunteers to do their driving, they could maybe subsidize some cases $10 worth of the $20. And when you go on the system, you'll see right on there, it's $14.84 for that ride. So that's, you know what your costs are. If they end up with more people in the car, that cost could come down. So it's new innovation. We're looking at thinking outside the box. And so I've got a lot more hope on this than I had in the past. And so we are going to, what I need from the council here is we need to say to the county's going to foot some of the bills, but we need to say, are we willing to, and because we don't know the numbers yet or anything, but are we willing to, as a council, entertain to be a partner in some of this type of stuff? And I think in the past we've sort of had a thought that we would be, but we didn't really know a cost. We looked at some other things, and I think we might have a situation where, I don't know, it might be down the road 20,000 or 25,000 or something we may have to put in if we decide to be involved. I don't know what the number is yet. But can I go back to the county and through the where we're going for a big grant from the government and say that we would be a participant? And I'm sorry I can't give you a number, But I think would you be all right with that? Okay. I was really impressed with it, and maybe I can get them to come up and give us a little.
If I could just make a comment on that, I filled out the survey myself.
Yep.
My concern is with the survey, I think we're going to miss a lot of the people that would be needing a ride or being able to use a ride because it probably aren't on computers.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about it, Gene, all the user groups that are there already, like the VONs and all the other ones that already have those people, they were there in the meeting and they were excited about it. So.
And that was what I wanted to speak to you about, was that grant that's out there.
Yes.
And that Voyageur is looking, because Voyageur is going through these communities transporting patients.
So we have a consultant working on this. It's Dylan's Consulting, and they're one of the top consultants for. And so they're going to go out. There's two ones. There's a 5-year program at $300,000 we can maybe get into, and there's one at $150,000. So there's a couple different things.
From my perspective as a counselor, I think it's something we absolutely need to look at for our community.
Yeah.
People are really restrained in their accessibility to certain things.
Yes.
And if we can provide them transportation.
And there's that, and so I think it's a good thing. So if I can give that moral support in, and as I said. I said we haven't got a lot of money, but we certainly would want to participate somehow. So I'll go if that's all right. Do you need a motion on that? Or just
maybe
direction. Maybe we should have a motion.
But we're not making a commitment.
No, we don't know. I don't even know what dollars are there yet. We're just saying we're supporting it on a principle, and then we'll have to find out where we're at. But you kind of wanted to have some support, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time because. The application has to be in at the middle of March or something like that. So we're kind of 98 ball a little bit. Okay.
I would make that motion.
All right, make a motion that we would be supportive of the project. No dollar amount added. We don't know what the dollars are going to be.
So, but before our approval is finalized, we would know the dollar.
Oh yeah, not only that, we know it would have to be fleshed out as to what we're actually getting into, right? Right now we're in the applying for the grant stage. Okay. We don't even, there's no, I think the county, right now the county spends, I believe, David, I'm just off the top of my head, $75,000 a year in taxis and other things that they do. Do they not?
There's two sections. One's for the east side of the phone.
Yeah.
And they allocate $54,000 to the north.
Yes, exactly. So there's money out there already. The county's already doing something like this, but they're just basically having to find drivers and do this and that, whatever. So and the VONs and everybody else are in the same boat. They've got money too. So we're trying to get everybody to work together on it. Same page. Okay. So mover, Gene, seconder, Dave, all in favor? Okay, I'll get back. We'll send a little note off to the county saying we're supportive of going forward. Okay. And the other thing I just wanted to bring up was, as you know, we're going to be doing a roundabout out in Tividale sometime in the spring. Yep. Sure. Yeah. And so I made a commitment to the people around Tividale, and the county's going to do this. We're going to have a session out once they get the plans all finalized, and they'll have a little information session at the Tividale Police Station, just to timing and what disruptions may be happening or not. Supposedly, there's not a lot of disruptions. So, but that is going through now, which is a $1.3 million.
Well, if it's anything like the one at White's Road and 109.
It wasn't.
I mean, it was, for the most part, it was open.
Yeah, and I think this will be similar. But I think it's good to go to the public and sort of let them have a chance to hear. So we're going to have that at.
That's all. I was just amazed which way you were going to go.
Yeah.
Which way you're going to be directed.
Yeah, you were going backwards sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's all I have.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Dirksen. The committee of the whole convenes in the regular council meeting. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Turton, second by Councillor Caldwell. The council of the town of Minto ratifies the motions made in the committee of the whole. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Dirksen, second by Councillor Anderson, that the bylaw number 2018-07 to authorize the access agreement with Brandon Rump, 53 Lawrence Street West, Harrison, be introduced and read first, second, and third times, passed on by council, COC of the corporation. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Caldwell, second by Councillor Dirksen, the bylaw number 2018-07 to confirm actions of the council of the corporation Town of Minto respecting the meeting held February the 20th, 2018 be introduced and read first, second, and third time and passed an open council seal the corporation. All in favor? One more? Okay.
Found one with Councillor Elliott.
Oh my goodness. Moved by Councillor Dirksen and second by Councillor Turton.
Sorry.
That the Council of Town of Minto adjourn to meet again at the call of the mayor. All in favor? Thanks for a good meeting, everybody.